Welcome everyone, Bits and Bobs is coming at you. We have Will Slattery with us. Will, hello again.
Hi Joe, how are things?
Good, day 4 of your time with us. I'll stop saying that soon, it suggests it's coming to an end.
Yeah.
And Conor McKeown.
Joe, you're wearing your nice jumper today.
I am. There is lots going on. So, in no particular order, we'll try and get through as much as possible. Niamh Fahey has announced her international retirement after 17 years in green jersey, 115 caps to her name. She, of course, was on the pitch when Ireland lost to Wales in Dublin, end of last year. She will continue with Liverpool. We will certainly try and reach out to Niamh and talk to her about an extraordinary 17 years in a green jersey, 115 caps. In the football world elsewhere, Celtic 16 points clear of Rangers. They were winners against Dundee last night. We will come to wins for Spurs and Arsenal in the League Cup last night and Tuesday night. The Mack Hansen back in your box verdict is very much in. We will discuss that. Back at the paper today, a couple of interesting stories. Paul Galvin is going to take charge of the Meath club Red Oath, who have won 3 Meath titles in the last 6 years. So Galvin is kind of dipping in and out, Does he like coaching, or does he think, I think I might like that, and then realises I don't know and dips out again?
There's always been a mysterious sort of thing about Paul Galvin, and I think like equally mysterious has been his choice of coaching job since he gave up playing football. Like, he went into Wexford that time and was their manager,
yes, and
only lasted till the lockdown. And I know from people down there that they thought an awful lot of his coaching. You know, you hear a lot of him as a coach. He went into Kildare in that sort of Mount Rushmore management team, and I don't exactly know what happened there. And he was with Kilmacud Crokes last year as well, and the players kind of spoke highly of him, as you would. And this is an interesting one. I'd have thought that there wouldn't have been any shortage of offers for clubs maybe in Dublin where he lives, or even back in Kerry. But I suppose what I'm interested in is what his end game is. You know, we all assume that Kerry GAA people want to manage Kerry at some stage, so maybe that's where he's going, but he's definitely one to watch.
Because I would think there are inter-county offers as well.
Yeah, you'd absolutely think so, yeah.
Anytime you listen to him speak about the game, he strikes you as somebody who would be really, really prominent coach. So Red Oath in Meath is his new destination. There is a new Dublin City Half Marathon, by the way. The kind of appetite for sport on the ground like this is huge at the moment. So there was a feeling from the organisers of the Dublin Marathon that there was a market out there for another half marathon in the city, and they weren't wrong. All 12,500 entries sold out in 2 hours, and apologies to those of you who were unsuccessful.
That's a very January thing, isn't it?
It's a good time to sell it.
Yeah, I think
speaking of selling, if you were unsuccessful, by the way, in making the Dublin Half Marathon, come to our live show on the 29th of January. I should mention it, I just realised. We're at the Ambassador Theatre in Dublin, top of O'Connell Street, which is where this half marathon starts, by the way, on March 30th at 8:30 in the morning. Oof, bloody hell.
Well, they could get the picture of everybody on O'Connell Street outside the Ambassador, and we could pretend that they're queuing up for tickets.
I can see what kind of mood you're in today.
Yeah.
So we are at the Ambassador with Martin Johnson and Keith Wood on the 29th. Tickets at Ticketmaster. Just go onto the Ticketmaster website and search Indo Sport. Lots of you have done that. And we'll see you there. It should be a brilliant night. A couple of days out from Six Nations and Ireland, England in particular, all with thanks to Energia. And the other story, back page, Graham Potter looking to bring in Evan Ferguson. No surprises. So there's some of the top line stories. I have not been through any of your emails today. Sorry, I'm all a bit rushed today. I had a busy morning.
I was waiting for this.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, Joe.
What were you doing, Joe?
I was alongside RT Six Nations presenter Jackie Hurley.
Yeah.
Getting photographed, because we're going to do that. We are the cover story. I think we are. God, it'll be embarrassing if we're not now. Page 18. Nothing cover about it. The RTE guide. That's a moment.
Big moment.
You know?
That puts you in a whole different demographic.
Go on.
Well, it just does. The RTE guide is sort of an institution of shop shelves and a particular vintage of person. Like, are you going to do a walk on Fair City? Like, is there any?
Well, you mentioned yesterday how much you were looking forward to seeing the set.
I was Fair City, yeah.
Was that
I didn't get a chance.
No.
I'd never set foot on the RT campus in my life before. That's why I was very excited to.
And did you take that as an insult?
And did your presence there cause people to turn heads? Were they?
Yeah, that's Joe Malloy from the Indo Sport.
I did walk in, and Ivani Quillen was walking in. She what I was saying, and she did a double take, and I said, "Don't worry, nothing's afoot."
Yeah, we're gonna have to take down all those buses with you.
And was it your own wardrobe you would have used?
No.
Oh no.
No, we were styled, not just giving clothes. We were styled.
Makeup.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, you're
I'm
used to
still
that.
waking the makeup.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
wearing it.
that's a.
So what did you go with? A chinchilla coat and a kind of a.
Went with a little green number, white T-shirt underneath. I'm wearing a green thing now, actually, and blue jumper, jacket, coat, kind of a thing.
Right.
It's good.
And are you more natural in front of the camera than you would have been this time last year?
No.
I mean, like a posing camera, not obviously talking.
I have a cross my hands and smile, hands in my pocket smile
Okay.
repertoire.
Like, how odd of a sensation is it to be there, like doing a photo shoot for the front page of the RT
It was
Guide?
very
I don't know
surreal.
how comfortable you are with that kind of stuff. or-
No. My every instinct of mine when this arose was to say, "Oh, it's not really." And I thought, why am I always doing that? That was honestly, I just thought, why am I always saying? Why would I say no to that? It's a great thing to be asked to do.
Yeah.
Frame it in 40 years' time. Look at that.
There'll be a lot of people a lot of people down home, I think, rushing out to buy the RT Guide just to.
Yeah. You'll be going to buy it just to ridicule.
Oh well, like I mean,
I'm certainly
my local
interested
news.
in the photos.
There's a serious order in my local news.
Yeah. So that's why I haven't got to any emails. I apologise. But yeah, look, I was
It's a good excuse.
I was
Isn't it?
living, I
That's
was
a
living,
good excuse.
yeah, I was living the high life out there.
There is a
The television centre. The Tommy Tiernan green room is very nice.
Well, there is a story which half the people I know say is an urban myth, and half the people I know say that it is true, and they know the person involved, and I know the person involved as well, and there's a fair chance it is true. But he's a musician, and he was out doing some radio program in RTE, and he was playing his music, and afterwards he went and he was waiting to go back into town, and he's standing at the bus stop, and he was waiting for the bus, and somebody came up to him with a clipboard and said, "Sorry, who are you?" And he said, "My name is Beep." And he said, "Yeah, but what are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I was doing the whatever radio program was." And she said, "Yeah, but what are you doing here?" And he says, "Well, I'm waiting on the bus." And she says, "You're standing on the set of Fair City."
Oh no. It doesn't go through here, no. There's no way to play that cool.
No, I don't.
I thought it was going to end with him being whisked off in a private chauffeured car. It's like, we don't let our guests get the bus.
Yeah.
That's where I thought it was going.
To matters more serious, we are going to talk to Colm Keys on a separate podcast in your feed very shortly, because Colm's been right across this story and he has another exclusive on it today. So we won't dwell on this overly, because we did talk about it on Bits and Bobs on Tuesday, and we will have Colm giving us all the detail in a moment. But Conor, you in particular are of the GAA world. Rory Gallagher has responded to the Jarlath Burns intervention. So long story short, everybody I think at this stage very well aware that Gallagher's estranged wife, they're separated, made very serious allegations against him in a Facebook post back in 2023. He had to step down from the dairy job. Maintained his denial of all allegations. They were brought to the PPS and things went no further. So the story this week was that Jarlath Burns had intervened, sent an email to those involved at NACE, who had recently appointed Gallagher as part of their backroom team, to urge caution on that front. So Rory Gallagher has now, according to Colm Keys' piece today, called on Jarlath Burns to withdraw his action. He released a statement to the Irish Independent calling for the intervention to be formally withdrawn, that the contents of the correspondence in that email are retracted. Gallagher said he'd be left with no alternative but to pursue legal action if that did not happen. In his statement as well, Gallagher said he had seen the email, and he said the GA president had engaged in, quote, an unprecedented move in an effort to sabotage my potential appointment. Regrettably, whilst this is the first time Mr. Burns' actions have been made public, he says, this is not the first time that I have been informed that he has taken matters into his own hands with respect to me and my family life. So, as he understands it, not the first time that Jarlath Burns has intervened when it comes to Rory Gallagher. He used his statement also to categorically, quote, categorically deny the allegations levelled against me, says that the PPS found he had no case to answer. And the GAA, naturally enough, were then approached for a response. They acknowledged there had been media inquiries, but they said, we have no comment to make at this time. Colm Keys just say, by the way, that Burns, in his email to Nace, stressed they did, of course, have the right and the independence to proceed with the appointment. It's not like Burns could send some kind of edict. It was more, I suppose, a representation to them as opposed to an order. Where will all this go?
That's the question. That is very much the question. You've got two very, I won't say self-assured people involved there, but two people who definitely know their own mind. And like a lot of people, I think I admire Jarlath Burns on the one hand for standing up for something that he thinks is a very worthwhile cause. But you are beholden to the office of GAA president, and I think you're kind of superseding your remit by getting involved in something like this, because besides anything else, there are lots of other issues and matters that you could deem comparable, that you're not sort of sticking your oar into, for want of a better term. And from the other side of things, it does look as though Rory Gallagher is very much determined to become a much more prominent coach. He looks like he's going to want to stick around. And if that is the case, there are more county boards and more clubs who are going to have to go through the same process and ask themselves this question again. So how this eventually ends up, whether Jarlath will retract a statement or not, I don't exactly know. But I don't think it's the last time we'll hear something about this.
What you make of it all, Will?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Conor. There's kind of two pieces of it. Obviously, Rory Gallagher trying to get back into coaching and management after the allegations and standing down from Derry and being involved in Corduff, and Jarlath Burns making a step that it's hard to know if that's what the GA president should be doing. Like, I think we discussed off air, Jarlath Burns, the GA man, might feel one way, but he's not Jarlath Burns, the GA man, and won't be for 3 years. So is this what the GA president should be doing with the office? It seems everyone has very different opinions. Like, we saw a thread about, issues regarding safeguarding clubs and counties and things that have to be adhered to in that regard. So it's actually a fascinating, obviously the allegations are very serious, but it's just a fascinating kind of juxtaposition between like what a president should do and what Jarlath Burns has been doing and getting a lot of plaudits for doing, and whether this is part of that or if this is something that he's overstepped in. And there's a lot of different opinions on that.
I'd be really interested to find out the process by which Nace nearly made the appointment, whose idea it was, where it came from, who were the people who would have had to ratify it or agree to it. Because in a club the size of Nace, and I'm not sort of localising it at that club, but there are going to be a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions. And everybody's a club member. That's the great or the worst thing about the GAA, just how democratic it is. So that'd be the thing that I'm kind of initially interested in, because I have to say I was really surprised by it when it came out in the first place. Not least because I knew that Gallagher was going to still be involved with Corduff next year. So, coaching two senior teams, both of whom have legitimate chances of at least winning their counties, shows a very strong determination to continue to work in this space.
Yeah.
It's gone from a Rory Gallagher story to a Jarlath Burns and Rory Gallagher story, or a Jarlath Burns versus Rory Gallagher story, and it's put a completely different spin on it than what we had on Monday morning, when it was just a question of, should Rory Gallagher be coaching at this team? Now it's, should Jarlath Burns be intervening on Rory Gallagher, and should Rory Gallagher be coaching this team? So it's multifaceted.
Yeah. Interesting, Gallagher saying this is not the first time Burns has intervened either. So it's a prolonged concern over Gallagher's appointments on Burns' part.
I'd be interested to find out, I know it was reported somewhere else that he hadn't, but I would be interested to find out whether Burns has made, and maybe this is what Gallagher is referring to in the statement, whether Jarlath Burns made any representation to Corduff. Because, why would they be exempt from the presidential objection if Nace received one?
That's such a glaring question that, putting two and two together, this isn't the first time he's made representations. I'd be staggered if he hadn't made some kind of representation to Corduff. So I mean, you can't you can't understate the seriousness of the allegations. They just loom large, and despite Gallagher's protestations of innocence and the PPS decision not to proceed, those allegations do follow him. That's just a fact of life, I think it's fair to say, and they're very, very serious. So one can understand Burns's concerns. that's an uncontroversial point. The question is, as you said, Burns has now set a precedent whereby certainly he, whatever about future GAA presidents, although I think future GAA presidents will say, well, thanks a lot, Jarlath, now you've put me in this position too. But he has now kind of assumed the role of moral arbiter of those who participate in GAA going forward. So there could be a similar case or another Kyle Hayes type scenario over the remainder of his tenure. There's obviously a situation in Armagh at the moment where we're limited in what we can say there. But now his silence, which would once upon a time have been not controversial, will be very significant. And he's put himself in that position. I don't know if that's a wise thing to have done. I don't suspect future presidents will want to do the same. But people may well applaud the moral compass that he's trying to embody. So it's quite a layered
and on a general
situation.
On a general theme, like Jarlath has been a very proactive president.
Yes.
And I know that that might sound like the most almost tautologist, like how can you be an inactive president? But
We've seen them.
We've seen them, and there's very much a kind of president who feels that this is the kind of apogee of their administrative service to the GAA, and they're happy to go around the country making speeches and dinners and shaking hands and opening pitches. But he has taken a completely different tack, and you have to remember as well. Sometimes you speak to people in the GAA who are kind of high-ranking officials, and they'd nearly be kind of throwing their eyes up to heaven at the latest thing that the GAA's president has done, because they're the people whose job it is to kind of keep everything very, very consistent and in line with policy. And then the person who's out in front of house changes every 3 years, and they might have different versions of events. So, not only is Jarlath sort of going on a bit of a solo run here, I'm sure there are plenty of people that are high ranking in the GAA that might have been advising him otherwise.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Let's push on. So Mack Hansen, we had wondered what the ban would be. I was arguing yesterday on our rugby show with Rory. He shouldn't get any ban whatsoever. I was wrong. 6-game ban, although reduced to 3, but 6-game ban. Following the comments he made over Christmas, he's going to miss the Lyon game, the Cardiff game and URC game against Glasgow. Connacht have received a suspended €10,000 fine. It would not be rugby unless player being punished was sent on some kind of course. So I don't know if they have this in the same building as tackle school, but he's going to a course related to match officiating. And then the learnings are to be disseminated to his teammates at Connacht. So I don't know, does he make a presentation? We can only hope so. He must also make an apology to the referee, Chris Busby, who's also in the news, by the way. More of that in a moment. And then he released a statement, Mack. Just before we hear his statement, here as a reminder, because it was busy and it was Christmas and there was lots going on, here is Mack Hansen speaking after Connacht were beaten 20 points to 8 at the Aviva Stadium, just to give you a flavour of where he was.
Can I say something real quick, Pete, about the situation? Cool. Because, I feel like we get this every week. We never get any calls, ever. I've been feeling this for years now. You can't possibly tell me yourself sitting there, checking the Gus McCarthy one. How much? How much did they check that? 10, 11 times? Bundy gets a direct hit to the head. It's quite obvious. No call. Doesn't care. It's we get that every time. So, I don't know if you can hear the frustration in my voice, because it's starting to get to a point where it's honestly bullshit, and it's starting to get really frustrating for us, because people will say we're an inconsistent team, but Jesus Christ, when you're getting some of the calls we're getting, of course you're going to be. And as I said, I'm not making excuses by any means, but when you just get it week after week, I feel it's got to be spoken about now, because it's just getting to a point where it's starting to really piss us off, because we just felt like we're getting played out of games, and we never ever get any calls. Didn't even look back at it. And then Josh goes off with a direct hit to the head again. And talking to Touchy, he goes, oh, well, when you're tackling, you lead with the head. What? That doesn't make any sense. That's a penalty, regardless. So he's actually said he's hit him in the head with his head, but because he was bent over, it was fine or something like that. When he smacked him in the back of the head with his head, and no call at all, not even a look back. We get that every time. So, he'd be in a tough situation if he says it, but like I feel like we need to, like, just needs to be said. Like, it's really fucking starting to get to us, like, as a team.
And then it was Pete. Have you anything to say? No. It's fine. So Mack has released a statement. You can imagine a gun to his head if you want. There's no need. However, after the Leinster game, on this occasion, I let my emotions get the better of me. Upon reflection, my comments to the media were ill-advised, fell far short of the standards I expect of myself, what the sport expects of its players. I want to offer an apology to the match officials for any distress my comments may have caused. Our games are built on mutual respect, and I didn't show that after the game. I also want to apologise to the URC. I fully accept the findings of the panel. I love Connacht. I love rugby. Will, that's a fairly serious slapdown. 6 games, albeit reduced to 3.
Yeah, and ultimately 2, because one of the games is a game that he won't be playing in because he'll be in Portugal with the Ireland camp, so that's kind of included in 3 matches. So ultimately it's a 2-match ban. I don't think you mentioned there that the entire Connacht team are now subject to media training by the Connacht. Have to be get like kind of a media kind of tutorial in how to answer questions. I'm just picturing Rudd's face on a board with like a big X over it, like this.
Why are they trying to ruin the sport and make it as dull as possible?
No, but it's funny you say that, because chatting to Rudd and seeing some of the commentary, like, oh, rugby's taking itself so seriously. Like, I don't think there's any sport now where a guy could go into a press conference after a game, speak like that about the referees, and there is, I think, another comment about feels like we're playing 16 men and not expect to get a sanction. Like, there's an idea that rugby is being so super serious on this specific instance, and I don't really agree with it, nor do I agree with the conflation of personality and talking about the referees like that. Like, there's plenty of ways to show your personality and be colourful, albeit that was a very colourful and personality-filled rant. Or not rant, whatever you want to call it. But I do think the things he said are things that will rightly be picked up on. Now, you asked me for other examples before we came on air, like Jack Noel, La Rochelle winger, England international, tweeted, I think in 2023, that a call in one of the Premiership extra games was one of the worst decisions he'd ever seen. He got a 10,000 sterling fine personally and had to go to a referee course like Mack Hansen, but didn't get a ban. So, like, that's, a somewhat apples to apples comparison. It wasn't an audio 3-minute kind of thing, but it was a direct criticism of the officials. So, we've seen kind of inconsistencies in kind of how dangerous clear-outs are being dealt with. We've seen, maybe inconsistencies in how this is being dealt with. But in this instance, I think a 2-match ban, a referee course, I don't know. The media training thing, I think, is extremely excessive. And that's where I would be like, that's rugby taking itself maybe a bit too seriously. But I think a 2-match ban is fair for what he said. Like, I don't think that sort of, discussions on officials should be allowed. You mentioned Chris Busby. I think you might want maybe tell the listeners what the subsequent Chris Busby news has been today.
Yeah, and the timing of this may well not be good for Mack Hansen because it's on the same day as his ban, and people about to maybe jump in and defend him are now going, oh, okay, I'll wait this one out and just see the particulars of the Chris Busby situation, because the referee that day is set to confirm his shock retirement from the sport, according to the 42. And he's not of an age where he should be retiring. He's viewed as one of the top prospects in international refereeing. The 42 understands he will step away from the professional game in the near future. Now, it does say in the piece, Busby's decision, the Hansen thing has not helped, but it is also thought to have been influenced by the levels of toxic online abuse. And I would say, to be fair to Hansen, that is the more consistent drawback of being a referee. The Hansen thing will happen once or twice in a career tops, whereas I'd say online abuse is fairly regular. He's refereeing Bath Claremont on Sunday. It's unclear how much longer he'll be active at the professional level. I mean, I suppose the insinuation is that Hansen, well, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
The straw that broke the camel's back, perhaps.
But one thing on Chris Busby in particular, like, I heard a lot of people say, oh, he wasn't particularly talking about Chris Busby, it was this broader thing. But we heard there, lots of specific incidents in that game. And yes, the TMO is responsible to maybe come in on some of them. But likewise, Chris Busby is responsible to go to the TMO when he sees something out of the corner of his eye and didn't do it. So it was personal as well as general, I thought. And that's why I felt that a ban would be forthcoming rather than a slap on the wrist. So while it probably isn't directly linked to it, I don't think this one incident would prompt him to retire. I don't think it's fair to exonerate Mack Hansen and say it wasn't directed at Chris Busby. Ultimately, he's the head of that team of officials. Were those decisions wrong or right? That's not the point, really. Like, it's the fact that he was kind of so kind of baldly and blatantly calling out Chris Busby's team and other officials in the league. And I am very surprised he retired. Like, I went to the bathroom, came back, and Ronan, our colleague, was like, Chris Busby's retired. And I was thought he was joking at first because it happened right on the heels of this announcement. But yeah, again, the people who were maybe defending Mack Hansen as much as they were after this, I don't know, does it maybe give them more pause to the impact it can have, because it definitely would have launched another tirade of online kind of abuse, I would imagine, after that.
I think it does. It softened Mike off a touch. I was like, okay.
Well, you were I was actually surprised how, well, your kind of stance yesterday, I must say.
I was sort of surprised myself. Sometimes you start talking in a live environment, and afterwards I was like, God, I sounded more forceful about that than I might feel. It's like a concoction of just sometimes rugby, you know, like Jack Crowley doesn't play against Sam Prendergast. Player says something interesting. Oh God, like the media, this is an outrage. It's like, I like the well, I'm wary of saying this. I can respect the values that it espouses endlessly. But sometimes it does take itself a little bit seriously. And I just thought Hansen was very emotional. Could you slap on the wrist? I would have been more saying, slap on the wrist. Mac, you can't do that again. You get one free. But if he was perpetually talking about referees like that, I would say, okay, that's not acceptable.
It's a no-go in every sport, really, though. I
it
think.
is increasingly. I give you that.
When they conflated that, I actually had not heard the full audio. I read the reports at the time, and I kind of said, well, all he's saying is what, you know, the weaker counties don't get the big calls. Yeah. But actually, when he said that and then went on to specify the particular incidents, it incriminates you more, because what you're saying is this is symptomatic of that way of thinking. So I think on the one hand, if you say a referee made a mistake, okay, that's or made numerous mistakes, or you're critical of their performance, that's one thing.
Yes.
If you say that there's a general trend, that's another thing. But when you put them both together, it actually makes it a bigger thing.
I can see how the URC said, like, at best he's saying we're an incompetent league, at worst he's saying there's borderline corruption here.
Yeah, like I remember, not to conflate everything to GAA, but after the 2013 All-Ireland final, Jim Galvin said that Dublin were playing against 16 men. That's why they committed 40 fouls in the last 5 minutes.
And what happened?
That was John McQuillan, nothing. In 2014, Brian Cody said that Barry Kelly, that the decision to award that free against Brian Hogan, that Bubbles O'Dwyer narrowly missed to win the game, he said it was criminal. And the CHC, I think, investigated and decided he had no charges. So it is a very
using criminal.
That's 10 years ago. I feel like now that would probably be.
Yeah, but I have to say,
it's been a tightening.
I don't know about rugby's disciplinary bodies or whatever, but like, we're talking about overextending yourself. The idea that a disciplinary body can hand out either an edict or a directive or a punishment, if you want to see it that way, that an entire squad submits to media training so that they say presumably less interesting things in the media.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a great development.
As a journalist,
well,
you don't think it's a great development,
like,
or a fan?
For an organising body to be literally saying to players, listen, you suppress what you feel after a match.
They don't even need media training. They are all media training.
Yeah.
Mack Hansen is literally the only guy who probably, would need to be told, look, don't go in and say.
I can picture them all sitting all in the classroom looking at Mack Hansen. Oh, thanks a million, Mack. Now we have to listen to this guy.
I'd like to reiterate yesterday. I think if I was in the panel, I said, can we, like, he's emotional. He's a player. He's doing media duties. He was in a press conference. It comes out. Would an apology suffice here? Does he have to miss games?
He does.
I think apology would suffice. And if, Mac, we ever see you in here again talking about referees like that, we will throw the book at you. That's what I'd be voting for in the panel. I'd be outvoted. I accept that, but that's where I am on it.
I'm genuinely surprised. I just think refereeing is just a no-go area. Not that I necessarily think Mac shouldn't have been allowed to say that. Obviously, if I was making the rules, I enjoyed that. I don't think it was overly, critical. But the world we live in, I think a ban, a 2-match ban, is a fair outcome. And I really don't like the notion that, like, someone in the media giving out about Mack Hansen now, like, what do you expect the guys to say now? Like, they're different issues for me. Like, him coming out and speaking about officials like that does not preclude another player from being like, showing insights into their personality. Whereas some people seem to think it does. That, like, Mack Hansen being censured on this specific issue means he'll never say anything interesting again. For me, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's the way to look at it personally. But
I think that's true too. I agree with that. Just before we touch on League Cup action, we got a first look at the future of golf. TGL debuted. We had Shane Lowry hitting the first shot in TGL history, teamed up with Ludwig Aberg and Wyndham Clark representing the Bay Golf Club. West Coast. Ironically, all the West Coast players were based on the East Coast team, but we won't get into that. Matt Fitzpatrick, Xander Schauffele, Ricky Fowler representing the East Coast. Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, like emperors at the Coliseum, looking down at their gladiators. So I watched this as well. I was very curious about this. You have written a piece about it.
Yeah.
If someone was to say to you in a word, good or bad? Good or bad? Black or white?
Bad.
Oh.
Yeah, I think like it's the sort of thing I think I'd like to do, but it's not the sort of thing I'd like to watch other people do for 2 hours. Like through your television, all the really spectacular, like the scale of things and the glitzy stuff, it just looks like a television program. Like I'm not sure this is going to catch on in the way that the billionaires who have invested $500 million to build a dome think it's going to.
Be honest, if it was my money, I also would be a bit worried.
Yeah, really would. The only thing that it has going for it in terms of, and I'm, like it's on a Monday and Tuesday evening when there's no primetime sports on in America during the time of year that this is coming on. And if it was on at primetime over here, if the kids put to bed and at an hour, I would absolutely flick it on.
Yeah.
But it's not like where else in the world are people going to watch this? Maybe it's supposed to be bite-sized clips. Maybe we're all supposed to watch this in hindsight. But like I'm not even sure the golf in it is that good because you saw some of the chipping around the green and it was atrocious. And the reason is like it's artificial grass, and these guys are so accurate with where they hit the ball and the club face and everything else, and the ball sits up on the grass. So you could see them kind of half sheepishly kind of going, well, what do you want me to do? I'm not going to change the way I chip so we, win the whole of whatever this virtual nonsense is. So as a launch went, it was fine, but I don't know what the next thing is. I don't know what's going to bring you back to it. What do you think?
I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be a lot more baseball caps on backwards, shorts, maybe a beer, no sense of competitiveness or contest to it. So it was a bit more formal than I feared, which was good. And it zips along really well.
Yeah, that's the good thing.
So they play 15 holes. Was it 6 of them are all 3 players just play alternate shot. So if you can imagine, Shane Lowry hits his drive and then Matt Fitzpatrick hits his drive. And by the time Matt Fitz has hit his drive, then Shane's teammate Ludwig Aberg is already lining up his chip shot. And so the hole plays out really, really quickly and well. So it zips along quite nicely.
I found the audio hard to get my head around because you had Scott Van Pelt who was presenting the show. Yeah. And he occasionally came over the sound, and then you had the announcers, the commentators, essentially in the studio, and then sometimes they were doing an interview with somebody like Tiger Woods, and then occasionally they would feed in without any great notice the live mics, the hot mics from the players on the course, and it didn't quite work. I do think that if it is to work, that's the key. We want to see what the players are saying, and we want to get to the stage when this is competitive, because I think there's like a $20 million purse or something. Right. So when we get to the stage where there's something at stake and the players aren't kind of half self-aware, looking around going, what are we doing here?
What helped was I got the impression the players enjoyed it. Like I thought that they felt this, it's interesting. Woods was interviewed and it was put to him that, all the players said once you were on board, they were willing to get on board. How did you convince them? And he said, well, I told them it is golf. It's meant to be golf. And as a golf fan, I wanted something that felt golfy. Like trying to appeal to someone who's not interested in golf by, introducing flying dragons and, tigers and stuff.
Is this pitched though at someone who isn't interested?
No, see, that was what reassured me. I think it wasn't like so silly, as in it didn't have so many gimmicks that it was trying to get somebody who, God, I hate golf, but I'll watch that version of golf. I thought it was.
But I thought that's the audience they might be looking for. Not hate golf, but like an indifferent, very casual golf fan who may just watch the majors.
Maybe.
Is that not who they want? Like, is it kind of a standard PGA Tour watcher really going to be? Maybe they would.
I think they would, because like you've got fairly high profile players. Like the presence of Woods on it can't be overstated. This is now the vehicle for Woods to further his career by another decade because he doesn't have to walk.
Not having him and McIlroy in the first one, I thought was a massive mistake.
Yeah, Tiger's out next Tuesday.
You're right. It was like a Gladiator 2S, kind of the two twin emperors up there. I just thought having them on the first one would have really given it an extra boost.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I suspect they thought, well, if this thing is a car crash or if there are technical problems, let's not have Tiger Woods exposed and all that. And I think they probably banked on big first-time audience curiosity factor and heavily promote the fact that Woods is in week 2 and McIlroy's week 3. So if you watched last night and you half enjoyed it, then you think, oh, they did mention 1,000 times Tigers next week. So how's Tiger playing? I'll go and have a look.
Hopefully as well that, like, I read up on the piece, on the stuff beforehand because I had to write a piece, but I found that the explainer is very tedious. Like, once you got it,
Yeah.
and they kept trying to hammer it home, and I understand why they have to do it, but they kind of go on for ages. But like, it's just like, maybe it's just me, but when I watch golf, I'm as interested in the course. You're trying to make out the holes. Like, you know, when you watch a major in, say, Bethpage or something like that, and all the holes look the same, it doesn't do the same for me as, say, Kiowa Island, where after watching the first day,
Yeah.
you know which hole they're on.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is the topography, both in terms of how it looks as scenery and in the kind of obstacle course quality of it. Oh, he's after hitting it on the right. Whereas there's none of that. Like, you're just standing on a thing, hitting balls at a screen, and I'm not sure who's going to watch that for 2 hours.
That's what I say. You guys are big golf fans. Like, I don't find it interesting at all watching them play a golf simulator, which is basically what it is to me. Because I like watching golf, you know, the big events, but like, it's like waiting for your turn at a stag, but you don't actually get to play. Like, and you're just kind of watching them smash the ball, soaring down some sort of desert landscape, and I'm like, is this interesting to people? But
I'll find myself watching it again. If anything, I'm struggling with real golf at the moment. So slow and
Well, that's like the
painful.
tagline for this was "Keep up, it's golf."
Yeah,
So they're obviously so aware that is the big
that is the issue with golf.
that's the big issue with golf, that they're going to mill through it. I found the opposite thing, that if anything, it was too quick fire. That you didn't even get a sense of who was on the tee and how far they had in.
I think your brain will start to quickly adjust. Actually,
Yeah.
don't think that'll be a problem. I'd be surprised if it's a big success though. I can't imagine. I put it this way: can I ever imagine coming in and you and Ronan and Shane and Conor, who love sport, and we all sit down, and every morning, whatever sport has happened, we start talking about it. I just can't imagine any of you guys going, geez, what about
Jupiter.
Boston Common last night?
Jupiter.
Yeah, I don't see it. This will, I think, at best, take a healthy slice of golf fans who are looking for a bit of something, and you sprinkle in Tiger and you've got Rory involved and they'll watch it. But I can't see this appealing to the masses.
I was reading a couple of pieces written by some of the American journalists who have a much greater kind of insight into what's going on behind the scenes in golf generally. And they kind of made a point that it's a little bit too big to fail, because a lot of the money that has been sunk into this are by the same people who have invested in the PGA Tour. Like, this is in partnership with the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour have signed over the players' image rights and stuff like this. So their kind of feeling of it is that if this doesn't work, well, you know, golf is forever blacklisted as a viable entity for people to invest. Certainly the kind of money that's required to get something like this off the ground. So I think it'll probably hold its own for the first year, but we are kind of screwed over here for timing. Like,
yeah, you have to record it much. Let me put it to you this way, okay? Would you now rather watch Saturday or Sunday at the Travellers, where Matt Fitzpatrick has a 2-shot lead over Joel Damon going into the final round, and there's no one else of any great significance in the top 10? Or would you watch Rory McIlroy's Boston Common against Tiger Woods' team?
I would watch. See, so the first option, the Matt Fitz option, has the potential for staying power because like, your focus is on one golfer and how they're going and where they hit the drive. There's a chance that if that became dramatic, I would watch it till the end. I'm more likely to flick on the second option, the TGL option, but I found myself disengaging very quickly the other night.
Right.
After I got a sense of it, and I was like, oh, they're just hitting balls at the screen, and he might get the putt and he might not get the putt.
Okay.
And the insight wasn't great between the players, and the banter was pretty boring. So I don't know what is the thing that will make me want to watch this again.
Okay.
Other than curiosity.
Yeah, okay.
Can I ask one question, a technical question vis-a-vis TGL? What does dropping the hammer I couldn't entirely glean what this actually was.
So it's match play, and as a gimmick, what they do is each team has a hammer, and it's basically a flag. And when they throw the flag,
that confused me.
it doubles.
There's no hammer.
Yeah, it doubles the value of the hole. So if they win that hole, it's then worth 2 points.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a gimmick, but I suppose it's just designed to juice it up a small bit.
A small bit. I applaud them for not juicing it up to gargantuan levels. Imagine there was the hammer, and then you can do a wizard thing, and then, like I was worried about all that crap.
Let's play bamboozle.
Yeah, I think Woods sort of put his foot down and said, "No, this still has to be golf," because I suspect they're smart enough to know we're not dragging in Will and Ronan and Conor who don't watch golf. Let's try and get people who like golf and give them at least something.
Yeah.
Would you say what's more interesting, the TGL or the match, the celebrity, 4 balls they've been doing?
I thought this was more interesting.
That's better.
I do too. Yeah.
Okay.
The match really hasn't worked. Do you know what? The biggest, we should talk about it someday if we're doing a golf podcast down the line. The most entertaining thing now in golf outside of the majors, which are better than ever, is YouTube golf.
Yeah.
And by that I mean Bryson DeChambeau's channel, Rick Shields, and things like Rick Shields trying to break 80. Rick Shields is somebody you should never have heard of. He's worth about 15 million quid now, but he's just a normal kind of golf professional in England. And he play against like PGA Tour players, and they'll give him like 10 shots. But like you've got Shot Tracker tracking the ball, they're mic'd up, there's great conversations. It's packaged into a 60-minute thing on YouTube or a 45-minute thing on YouTube. And honestly, him trying to break 80, which is a really good challenge for him. Sometimes he does it, oftentimes he doesn't, plays really good courses. That is weirdly a way more interesting watch than watching a pro shoot a 70. And so on paper, the pros hit more solid shots and come in with 3 birdies, 1 bogey. Whereas Rick's over here on a roller coaster. He could hit a great shot 1 minute, bad shot the other, but he's a good enough golfer to kind of watch. And my favourite thing to watch at the moment after the majors in golf media is YouTube on golf. It's streets ahead of the PGA Tour, which is a crazy thing to
it's
say.
miles ahead. And it's bizarre that a sport like golf actually lends it so well to bite-sized social media stuff. Like even watching, the European Tour have been very good. But when they do like the 3-club challenge, or after you pick after you use a club, the other person can't do it, and they just get 2 players aside for. I will watch them all day.
It works, yeah.
I watch them all day long.
It works, yeah.
But I think the reason that watching average golfers, fail or succeed is so compelling is that uniquely in golf, like I played St Andrews, the old course, 5 weeks after the Open was there a couple of years ago. You don't get to play Wembley the week after the FA Cup final. Like it does have that kind of thing here. It's a bit like, when the Irish Open is here, a load of Irish golfers will go along just to see where the pros hit the ball on the course compared to where they hit it when they were on their course. So
you see people at the course with their rangefinder.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact.
It's great.
I even found your question to Conor a few minutes ago interesting when you asked him, like, would you be more likely to watch the TGL or the Saturday of the Travellers?
Yeah.
You didn't even say Thursday or Friday.
That's done.
You wouldn't even consider that anymore.
Isn't that like, the way in like say tennis, the Grand Slams are 5 sets. The regular tournaments are 3 sets. Like, it's funny that like every golf tournament, no matter how big or small, is a Thursday to Sunday slog. Like, I
hear Live fans shouting at their earphones right now.
Well, even Thursday and Friday at the majors is a small bit of a slog.
Increasing.
Like you kind of have to pick your moment to watch it to see the interesting thing happen, because there's no chronology to it. It's random tee times. I wonder would they ever, even from the Friday, start to stack the order of the field in that way.
I think. For variety of reasons, attention spans, variety of offerings on television, the post-Tiger era, having lived through Tiger and now he's not there, you can't, forget what it was like. I think we're on a runaway train. It's irretrievable. Golf is becoming tennis. It just is. In that 48 weeks of the year, the drop is gargantuan. And it wasn't like that for the last 20 years.
No, it wasn't.
So I think that's, and golf is looking around for all sorts of solutions. Fundamentally, I think that's where golf is headed. The other 48 weeks of the year just for some reason have lost it, and much like tennis, once it's gone, it's largely gone. So
the purses are still huge though. So it's like
Paul McGinley just this week was saying we've got a financial problem. Like things,
yeah.
There's not going to be a soft landing here. The way money going out and money coming in is going. Just before we go, we had in the League Cup Arsenal 0, Newcastle 2 on Tuesday, and Spurs 1-0 winners against Liverpool on Wednesday. Arsenal was a case of not taking chances. Mikel Arteta bemoaning the finishing. And also the ball, by the way. It's usually kind of a World Cup story, but it's now a League Cup story. He said, we kicked a lot of balls over the bar. It's tricky. The ball flies a lot. It's just different to the Premier League ball. We have to adapt to it. He said it flies different. The grip is very different as well. EFL have released a statement defending their ball. They say meets all the standard requirements and tests, and it's used successfully. Same ball in other major European leagues. So that was that. And then Spurs... Lucas Bergevall was the kind of centre of discussion in that there was a sense he should have got a yellow card for a tackle on Tsimikas, second yellow, and Patrick Davison put this to Ange afterwards. And in the way a politician sometimes says, I'm glad you asked me that. Ange was like, well, I am glad you asked me that. And so the studio didn't seem to know the rule because they were saying, we can't defend Bergevall, it's definitely a yellow. Ange actually correctly identified the difference here.
You've had more than your fair share of bad luck. Did you get a slice of luck with the goal? Lucas Bergevall lucky to be on the pitch?
Yeah, great question. No, he wasn't. He wasn't because because again, people misinterpret my comments from the other day. The rule is, and we've been told for quite a while now, that if advantage gets played, as long as it's not a cynical tackle, then the yellow card doesn't, because we've been screaming for it for the last 2 months. It's happened to us consistently. Have a look at our games. And we've asked the officials, and they've said, if we play advantage, as long as it's not a cynical tackle, then the yellow card doesn't get paid. Now, to me, that was pretty clear.
I think, though, the argument or the glaring follow-up for Davidson to put to him would be, looks cynical enough to me. Liverpool on a counter-attack, Bergevall stopping man one way or another.
Yeah, no, definitely, because we looked up the actual ruling earlier. There was a good little explainer. And
it's been a fun morning over the audio desk.
Yeah, well, he's an RTE. I'm looking up VAR explainers. This is my new job. 3/4 of the paragraph made sense with Ange's explanation, but there was a little bit at the end that if it's an obvious yellow card, you can come back and give it. So it's kind of open to interpretation.
Yeah.
I think everyone looks at that and think that's the yellow card and a foul. Ange does have some of the wording on his side. There's other wording that Arnie Slot would maybe look at and say that should have been a yellow card. Just the happenstance that it literally followed right after the winning goal was just... I think Arnie Slot even was like, I think the referee would have given a yellow if he'd known it was going to cause literally the winning goal potentially afterwards. But you know, it added a good bit of drama. It's been a good 2 days of the Carabao Cup. We wouldn't usually come in here that excited to talk about it, but funnily after you talking to Damien about Newcastle, them going to the Emirates and winning, and then Spurs, like... I don't know, but
that would be a game. I mean, that would be a good final if it transpires. Stuart Atwell made history last night. So just in the Carabao Cup, the referee will speak to the stadium. It was very unnecessary. I think there were screens. Okay, maybe it's for blind fans of the game, but like, the screens everywhere just saying offside. It was fairly
goosebumps. History, Joe. It's like a moon landing. I'm going to remember this moment.
Will it get to a point where he's... Because Arne Slot made the point, well, I'd prefer if he'd come on to the stadium and explained why Bergevall didn't get a second yellow. That would have been interesting. Will we get to a point where Stuart Atwell's coming on and saying, well, we've looked at it and we think there was sufficient contact. That's our interpretation of it. And then boo! Is that thing?
I presume that's what it's for. Like, if for a more contentious decision, a penalty. When they're checking a penalty, there might be there was sufficient contact or there wasn't. Or I guess by the time you've seen them, you've kind of know why they're giving them most of the time. I guess it's maybe the ones they don't give that they look at is where like a bit of audio would provide a bit more clarity.
Yeah, for the stadium, I suppose, as much as anything. They definitely, I mean, maybe they were, here, this is really a vanilla one, it is offside. Just go with this one first, because I'm sure they're anticipating, like,
but it's a very,
riots.
Like, in terms of the overall number of people watching the game, like, it's a very, very small number of people to be going to such great lengths to explain for.
Yeah, I guess maybe they feel the TV audience will get something out of it when it's contentious. So if it's Stuart Atwell just saying, hey everyone, as you all know, and as the signs behind me already say, it is indeed offside, then this is no good. But if it's Atwell saying, look, I've looked at it and I think there's not enough contact and I do think he nips the ball first, so look, it could go either way, but I'm sure he wouldn't say that. But I'm saying it's a penalty, then that would be great.
But the TV companies use it and say, like Stuart Atwell saying, was it offside? Find out after
after the break.
After the jackal.
Well, the funny thing about it was, like, it came up on TV offside, and then it was like another 30 seconds before Stuart Atwell got it, that he could announce it. So the people at home are just sitting there waiting, like elevator music playing while we're waiting for this. I guess it's to improve the in-game stadium experience. there's always this battle of like, has TV become so much more better that they want to add a little bit in? Like they've done it. They did it in rugby recently. The autumn test was the first time that the TMO
Spoke to the crowd, yeah.
Yeah, or the referee coming back from the TMO.
I think in rugby it works beautifully in that the TV audience know what the referee's thinking or she's thinking and why they're thinking it. So for me, if that's where it goes, that's amazing. Now, there's one man who thinks it's not good.
Look, I'm really surprised at how, what's the word I'm looking for, how people in this country are so easily letting the game change so much so quickly. It's changed more since VAR has come in, and I've been involved, I think, in the last 50 years. Did everyone really love the announcement today? Did that give you a real buzz about, I mean, seriously, but why do we want to change the game so much? And I know I'm going to be the old bloke in the stands who keeps shouting boo every time VAR, and I'll be the only one, but I just thought people would be a little bit more protective about the sanctity of the game. That's what I was talking about. Like, I wasn't criticising referees. I've never criticised, like I said, I didn't think the decision was right, but it's just the way the game, I think there's a lot of confusion at the moment.
I suspect lots of people will agree.
That's great.
Great audio.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with them or not,
He probably, if he said that, if he said,
6 game.
if he said it in rugby, he'd probably have to go to a course.
Yeah. Fellas, we've gone way over time. Oh my God, this is meant to be bright, breezy and quick. We're at 52 minutes.
When is the RTE guide? What date is it out?
I would presume, Conor, the week before Six Nations.
Okay.
Wouldn't make a huge amount of sense much later than that.
Okay.
So, look, I will know it's out when I see your name pop up on my phone.
What would the experience be like if you went into the newsagents and it was only Jockey Hurley on the front and you'd been cut off?
Oh, Jesus!
Just hypothetically.
I'm not going to sleep for 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't know. I've nothing more to say about the situation.
I already hit you there with that one.
That is bits and bobs for today. We will talk to Colm Keys in a bit more depth about the Jarlath Burns Rory Gallagher story, which he's right across at the moment. That will be in your feed presently, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks, fellas.
Cheers, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.